First of all, thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. This is another example of where working together across the aisle we can help improve the economy. And I want to thank Senator McCaskill for working closely with me and helping develop this legislation really for over a year now. And we started about a year and a half ago together. We've also reached out to a lot of stakeholders in the room here today and others. We also are pleased to say that this morning we're joined by some of our colleagues as original co-sponsors. Senator Donnelly, who's here, will speak in a moment, but also Senator Barrasso, Senator Enzi. So when people tell you bipartisanship is dead on Capitol Hill, this is, to use Mark Twain's comments, that's a slight exaggeration. It's alive, maybe not on everything, but there are proposals that we can work together on and accomplish some important things at a time when our economy, frankly, is not performing to the level all of us hope it would. It's just not creating the jobs, leaving people behind. Unemployment's too high. We aren't seeing the kind of robust recovery we hope to get after a deep recession as we had. And although the federal government can't create jobs, the federal government can't create an environment for job growth. And that's the point of this legislation and other initiatives that some of us up here have been working on together. This legislation specifically deals with federal permitting. And it deals with a problem that's been identified by a lot of different sources, which is that the United States lags the rest of the world when it comes to permits. In fact, based on an International Monetary Fund metric that has to do with the ease of doing business in different countries, the United States ranks 17th in the world in terms of the federal permitting process. Basically, you know, a green light from the government to build something, to create something, and to create jobs, as we'll hear about later. It's not unheard of for a single energy project, for instance, to require 35 separate federal permits. And that's one reason that in this legislation we work on streamlining. The uncertainty that results from that does affect a lot of construction projects, other investments. It makes it more difficult to people to take a risk, particularly in this relatively weak economy. And you know, it's a permitting system that's got too much complexity, too much redundancy, and too much delay. So that's why we're moving forward with this. It actually has already been legislated on at least something very similar, and that's in the transportation bills, both in 2006 and 2012. We also took a lot of our ideas from the President's Jobs Council. They came out very strong for permitting reform. And then there are other private sector studies, including the Business Roundtable, Chamber of Commerce. I see the Chamber's here today. You know, they've been out front on this issue. And I'm also really grateful to the building trades. They're here today. They get it because they want to create jobs. And they're willing to work with us, not just in developing this legislation, but helping us to actually get this enacted. And Sean, thanks for being here today. The bill does basically three things. First, better coordination. So it says, you know, you got to work together to coordinate at the federal agency level and set timelines, deadlines for permitting. So it has this Federal Improvement Council, the Federal Permitting Improvement Council, and it designates a lead agency. That lead agency does two things. One, sets reasonable deadlines, and two, ensures that all of the federal entities are coordinated together. And then finally, it coordinates with the state and local entities, because often this is an issue where you have redundancy and sometimes different timelines. So with the federal agencies, for instance, it encourages concurrent review rather than one federal agency and then another, adding to some of the delays we talked about. Second, it encourages more transparency. This, I think, is really important because it requires early consultation between the sponsors, permitting agencies, and then there's a dashboard to track the status of approvals. And this lets us as citizens be able to see what's happening. And there's a lot of accountability built into that, not only having a lead agency with more accountability, but also having the transparency to know whether that agency is meeting the deadlines. And if not, why not? Finally, it reduces some of the litigation delays. It reduces the current default statute of limitations on related lawsuits from 6 years to 150 days. And again, this is consistent with what was done in MAP 21, the 2012 highway bill. So it covers significant economic projects, 25 million or more, and it includes projects across all sectors. So renewable energy, oil and gas, transportation, broadband, manufacturing. It doesn't change substantive standards, but what it does do is creates a smarter, more transparent, better managed process for getting government reviews. So look, our economy's got to overcome a number of different obstacles. This is one, and this is an opportunity in a bipartisan way for us to get that obstacle out of the way and allow the economy to perform better for the folks that we represent. With that, I'd like Senator McCaskill to talk a little about the legislation, Senator Donnelly, and then some of our stakeholders who are here today. Claire.
I was joking with my staff on the way over here that I was worried that lightning was going to strike the building because we have Republicans and Democrats. We have the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, and the labor community in this country all united in this effort. And it's common sense that we are proud in America that we build buildings that are safe and that we protect our environment. But we have also been guilty of allowing the permit process to have way too many tentacles. When you have that many cooks in the kitchen without a chef, it never has a good ending. And what we're doing with this legislation is putting someone in charge. If you do oversight work, it is impossible to get accountability if everyone is capable at pointing the finger at someone else. So one of my favorite parts of this legislation is naming the person and agency that is accountable. The other part of this legislation that I think will work miracles is this transparency, the dashboard. If we put truth serum in the water in a lot of government agencies, they would admit that there are files that sit on desks and sit and sit and sit, because the urgency is not there. When you create this dashboard where everyone can see how long it's taking, when you can see that something is stalled somewhere and it's not moving, then all of a sudden that transparency creates the urgency that everybody wants. And that is, if it's a good project, if the resources are there, let's get moving. So I think this is a terrific piece of legislation. We ought to be able to get it through here quickly, especially with the partners we have, both Republicans and Democrats. And we have, I think, a lot of members will want to join in on this legislation. There's nothing new here. There's nothing different other than a commitment that the federal government can do a more efficient job of permitting projects so we can get more of Americans back to work, and we can then hopefully do the other piece of this, which is additional investment in our infrastructure. And with that, I will introduce the senator from Indiana, Joe Donnelly.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Senator McCaskill, Senator Portman, our friends from the Business Roundtable, the U.S. Chamber, the building trades. My number one priority is to create jobs. And in order to create jobs, we have to make it as easy as possible for our businesses, for our working people, to have a chance to see the private sector invest in our infrastructure and make it grow. And this bipartisan legislation, this isn't Republican, this isn't Democrat, this is about putting people back to work. It cuts red tape, it sets deadlines, as the senator was saying, and it increases transparency. What we have to do is put people to work and build things. When we build things, we make our country grow, we create more opportunity, we create more success. And if all we do is throw up roadblocks, it makes it much more difficult to move forward. So together, our friends in private industry, our friends in labor, and as a team, us working together, I'm grateful to Senator McCaskill and Senator Portman for letting me be part of this. But together we can move this forward, and the great result is going to be one of these days, very, very soon, there'll be another mom or dad going to work on another construction site, building America and building the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Well said. Okay, we've got AFL-CIO here with the building trades. We got Bill Miller from the Business Roundtable and Jack Howard from the Chamber. Sean, you're standing there. You're next.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity to be here. We greatly support this bipartisan effort. I am with the building trades. We do construct these buildings and these facilities, and I can tell you that we work very closely with the people that actually invest the dollars, the private sector dollars, into these facilities across the United States, from the American Petroleum Institute and its members, the American Chemistry Council, the pharmaceutical industry, and even the private equity folks that are investing huge dollars. And over the last 7 or 8 years, as we've really needed it, it's been unbelievable what we've had to go through this process to actually get a project from conception into the field under construction, and at the end of the day, not just the construction jobs, but the operational jobs that come with operating those facilities that are good jobs. Right now, we believe in the building trades that the natural resources finds, the extraction and deployment of those in the United States gives us the opportunity we haven't seen since the space race for job creation, new technologies, and putting a whole new group of Americans into the middle class through the construction operation and then into the operations of the actual facilities. So we're very excited at this piece of legislation. We would find it hard to believe that we wouldn't have unbelievable, overwhelming support on both sides of the aisle and the president supporting it. It's all about creating jobs. It's all about, at this point, private investment. We understand that the federal government is struggling with its budget and will do so for the next decade or so at least. There is lots of money in the private sector out there that's willing to invest, but they have to have surety and predictability that when they come up with a conceptual idea, that they don't spend tens of millions of dollars jumping through permitting and regulatory hurdles only to never get to the finish line where they build the operation. So this will clear the pathway and lead to unbelievable job growth in the construction and in the operations of these facilities. So we're excited to support it, and thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Really well said, and that, you're talking about it from the point of view of the people making the decision, and they're not going to do it if they feel they have to go through all these hoops. Jack Howard from the Chamber of Commerce. Thanks, Jack, for being here and your support.
Well, thank you, Senator, for inviting me to appear today. On behalf of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we're delighted to put the full weight of the Chamber of Commerce behind this piece of legislation. We've all heard too many stories about shovel-ready projects in the last few years, only to find out that they aren't quite as shovel-ready as we thought they were or hoped they would be. This legislation cuts through and goes right to the crux of the problem. This issue has been an important part of the Chamber's agenda for years, and we're grateful to the senators here for taking a lead on it. I was particularly happy to hear this morning that you added 2 more co-sponsors to the bill already, which we hope is a sign of momentum. We've been working with Senator Portman and Senator McCaskill and their staffs to highlight the need for this legislation, and we appreciate their assistance and willingness to listen to our suggestions in drafting the legislation. The Federal Permitting Improvement Act of 2013 addresses the problem faced by so many shovel-ready projects today, lengthy delays as a result of endless environmental reviews and challenges. And these delays result, as we all know, in lost opportunities to create jobs and grow the economy. Just to illustrate the nature of the problem, the Chamber's No Project 2011 study identified 351 energy-related projects that have been delayed as a result of the permitting process and environmental challenges. So what has been left on the table as a result of those 351 delayed projects? $1.1 trillion in revenue and 1.9 million jobs annually during 7 years of construction. As the senators said in their opening statements, this shouldn't be a partisan issue. If anything, it should be a nonpartisan issue. All Americans, Democrats and Republicans alike, lose as a result of this bureaucratic tangle. This bill untangles the knots of regulation, keeping millions of Americans from working. Every year of delay created by our inefficient permitting process results in millions of jobs not being created. These lost jobs are worth ensuring that our government works more efficiently and quickly. Too many Americans are still desperately looking for work. The irony is the work is there waiting to be done, needing to be done, but the projects are tangled up in red tape, endless reviews, and redundant, overlapping agency authority. We all have too many stories of bureaucracy run amok, and this bill is designed to fix that. The Federal Permitting Improvement Act is the kind of common sense legislation we should all be able to agree on. And the bipartisan support demonstrated here today should be a sign of our willingness to work together to get this through the Senate and through the House. That's why the legislation, such as Senator Portman and Senator McCaskill's Federal Permitting Improvement Act, is so important And we at the Chamber look forward to working with them to get it to the President's desk and signed into law so we can get people back to work. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Well put, all about jobs. Bill Miller from BRT. Thank you for being here, Bill.
All right. Well, I want to thank the senators here, Senator Portman, Senator McCaskill, and Senator Donnelly, as well as the senators who are not here today. My name is Bill Miller, and I represent the Business Roundtable. Business Roundtable is a group of leading CEOs from across the country representing about $7 trillion in economic annual revenue and over 16 million employees across the country. So there is nothing that we want to do more than make investments. As the senators mentioned earlier, the BRT has studied this issue extensively and consistently have identified federal permitting process as a barrier to business investment, economic growth, and job creation. We're pleased to see the senators here and the elements that have been outlined previously. Our members think are necessary to streamline the permitting process and in doing so unlock private investment and jobs that will come as a result of that. Specifically, and the senators talked about this, creating deadlines and schedules which inexplicably do not exist today for processing permitting applications. It'll also designate a lead agency for each of the projects to eliminate the bottlenecks of overlapping jurisdictions. These steps will make the process of obtaining a permit smarter, more efficient, and we believe more effective. I think that the issue relating to the dashboard so citizens can track the status of projects is incredibly important. We're very supportive of this legislation. We think it is, as the senators have said before, exactly the right kind of thing to break gridlock that exists too often in this town. And for me personally, as a guy who owns a couple of restaurants, too many cooks in the kitchen is never a good thing. So again, on behalf of the BRT, we're extremely proud to be here today. We think that this is exactly the kind of legislation that should move forward quickly, and we will do everything that we can to be supportive of that. Thank you.